For weeks, recently, the president was obsessed with Oregon, specifically the city of Portland, mainly because a group of people protesting outside Portland's federal courthouse. So he mobilized federal forces who scooped up protesters in the middle of the night, and he talked about it nonstop, constantly ratcheting up tensions and posting video on his Twitter feed because he saw federal intervention and the ensuing mayhem as a political benefit to him. But now as Oregon burns, like really burns, with more than 30 fires raging across the state, consuming more than 1 million acres, the president's silent. 40,000 people have evacuated. 500,000 are in potential danger zones. That's more than 10% of the state's population. Governor Kate Brown said that dozens of people have been reported missing and to brace for a significant death toll. And although emergency federal funding has now been approved for Oregon, the governor said yesterday she reached out to the White House on Wednesday but hadn't heard back. We know what the president's attitude is when it comes to helping the parts of America that don't vote for him. Here's how the former chief of staff for the Department of Homeland Security described the president's reaction to 2018's devastating wildfires in California.
On a phone call with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, he told FEMA to cut off the money and to no longer give individual assistance to California. He told us to stop giving money to people whose houses had burned down from a wildfire because he was so rageful that people in the state of California didn't support him and that politically it wasn't a base for him.
Despite the president's absence of leadership, there are a number of people working very hard to get these states what they need. Among them, Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat of Oregon, who joins me now from an evacuation site. Senator, thank you for taking a little time with us. And I wonder if you could just give us an update on how things are in your state right now.
Well, Chris, I started out this morning on the northern border of Oregon in Portland, and by this evening I'll be on the southern border. And through the entire stretch, north to south, 300 miles, it's just this absolute fog of smoke. At times you can't see 100 yards. And to have so many fires burning at the same time, running down the side of the Cascade, the Santiam Valley, the McKenzie Valley, the Medford Valley, it's almost feels apocalyptic.
Kate Brown talked about yesterday in her update the fact that there are some concrete needs the state needs, particularly people power, that you don't have enough firefighters right now. And I wonder, are there concrete things the federal government can or should be doing right now that they are not?
Yes, the governor had reached out and asked if we could get the funds for training 2 more teams of 125 National Guard members and got the response that wouldn't be possible. My team spent yesterday working that issue. We did get the funding approved. But I'll tell you, here's the challenge. With so many fires across the country, the trainers are hard to get and the crew chiefs are hard to get. So we got the money, but we've still got some work to do to get that additional 250 National Guard up and running.
So I also have to ask about how you're managing this. I see folks behind you. You're in an outdoor area. Obviously, air quality is very bad, so being outdoor is not ideal. But we're in the midst of a pandemic. You can't be putting tons of people under one roof. How are you managing? How is the state managing to deal with the people that are being evacuated?
What the state is doing is trying to put everyone into hotel rooms. So it's a lot of hotel rooms empty because of the COVID crisis. And getting that distance. I did visit a very, very large government facility today that has widely spaced cots in it. So it is congregate capability there if they can't get a hotel room. But by and large, they're being able to get folks undercover into hotel rooms for right now. If there was another surge of refugees from the fires, evacuees, then that won't be possible. But for right now, it is.
What is your anticipation of the trajectory of this? I mean, is the expectation now that this is going to grow and get worse? I know there were 2 fires in Clackamas County that looked like they might threaten to merge. Where is this going right now, as best as you and the experts can tell?
Well, so we had these tremendous winds come up last Monday evening and then on through Tuesday and partly through Wednesday and Thursday. But by Thursday noon, yesterday noon, they pretty much stopped. And the anticipation now, if things are cooler, there's an inversion layer that's keeping things pretty quiet. and we're expecting the wind to reverse and start running from west to east, pushing the fires or keeping the fires away from the population zones that it's been approaching. So we hopefully, if the winds conditions stay as it has been the last 24 hours, we might be through the worst of the raging fires coming rolling down the valley.
There was some concern about Portland. It seems to me like that's obviously my understanding is that Portland's never been evacuated for wildfires before, and obviously it's the largest population center in your state. Is the expectation that if the winds shift in that way, that Portland will be able to not have to evacuate?
Right now, we're thinking Portland will be fine. The fire was approaching towns on the suburban outlying areas of the Portland metro area. But that seems to have calmed down. So for right now, we're pretty hopeful.
I want to ask you about a news story. There's been a few news stories about this, about local law enforcement in various counties in Oregon having to issue notices to people about a viral meme that was going around that Antifa had set the fires. And or they were coming to loot. There's quotes from people saying they're not going to leave because I've already heard reports that Antifa's coming to town, going down the streets looting. I'm getting texts. How much of an issue has that been, that this sort of viral rumor and what it's done to being able to evacuate people?
That viral rumor went everywhere, and it's just so regretful that there are people who are setting up this effort to really divide people against each other in the middle of a crisis like this. Senator Wyden and I and Congressman DeFazio asked the authorities any evidence of any kind of extremist group setting these fires. Their answer was absolutely no evidence of any kind. This is a complete conspiracy thesis that someone just decided to stir people up, fuel the hatred and division over the web. And so I'm glad the law enforcement agencies are setting the record straight.
Final question for you. You have been very outspoken on climate, and given the fact that we're seeing records set up and down the West Coast, it looks like we may have actually lost you there, Senator Jeff Merkley, there at an evacuee center in Oregon amidst those fires. I think you have you, Senator. Final question for you, just on someone who's been very outspoken on climate. What this urgency that you feel in the wake of this when you go back to Washington on this issue?
Oh, this just puts an exclamation point on it all. We have seen the snowpack in the Cascades just shrinking year after year, the fire season growing. We have fires that start in March. We have ones that come in November. In California, it's a year-round now. It's affecting the farming, the fishing, the forestry. So this is not an urban issue versus rural. This is like attacking the foundations of the rural economy. It's affecting the quality of life of the urban world. We've got to all team up together, put all party considerations aside, and really have an incredibly robust effort to pivot next year in 2021, have a massive national effort to take on climate, and then put America back in the leadership of the world, bring the rest of the world forward. Otherwise, the whole planet is a tragedy of the commons. Everybody will suffer, and everyone will wonder why the hell people didn't act. We have to act.